Good morning and welcome to the latest episode of Ecomm Engine. Today we're going to be talking all about exceptional experience, and I'm delighted to be joined by both Sarah and Leah this morning. Before I get stuck in, let's just do some intros. Sarah, I'm going to come to you first. Please just tell us a little bit about you and your backstory and also the story behind Red Ant.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Nathan. Thanks for inviting us on today. My name's Sarah Friswell. I'm CEO of Red Ant. We have built a product called Retail OS that has been designed with store associates in mind to empower them to provide the best customer experience in store, driving incremental sales and enhanced experiences. My background is in client management, so that experience point is really important to me, whether that's in the retail setting or whether that's the experience we're providing to our own clients.
Very good. And Leah, good morning. Thank you for joining us. Tell us a little bit about you and everything that's going on at Appointedd.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm delighted to be here to talk about all of this with you guys. My name is Leah Hutcheon. I am the founder and CEO of Appointedd. We're an online scheduling platform and we help brands to connect with their customer from whatever web-enabled platform, so often their websites, but sometimes apps, any online platform, and we turn that interaction into a scheduled appointment. So we work with Red Ant really closely in the retail sector to take customers and really bring them into an in-store or virtual engagement point. And it's all about surprising and delighting and really engaging those customers so that they get the best experience possible, which is why I'm delighted to be joining today to talk about all of that. My background is I was a magazine editor, so I was on the kind of glossy side of the kind of customer interaction, and I was always really frustrated about how brands could kind of show their best side in print, but then couldn't engage properly. And even when the website came, how did you turn that interaction into a real and meaningful engagement with the customer, which is what inspired me to start Appointedd. We're now working in a whole host of different brands, different sectors. We're powering bookings in 167 countries. So a real kind of big footprint, but all about that kind of customer engagement and delighting the customer.
Did you say 167 countries?
Yeah, it's like 80-something% of the world. So we do an annual data report where we look at all of our data across all of the brands that use us, all of the customer bookings. And it was a real surprise moment for us. We kind of had exactly the same, like, did you just say? So we don't have brands in all of those countries, but because of some really cool multi-time zone software that we have, we really help global brands to engage with their customers across different time zones, which has led us to such a big footprint globally.
Very good. And just a question there, in terms of like booking, is it primarily, my daughter's got a prom coming up, right? And so we're looking at makeup consultations and stuff like that. Is that the typical thing retailers are booking? And is it normally a free consultation, or are they booking paid experiences as well?
So we see both, and this is absolutely in the sweet spot of where Red Ant and Appointedd come together, is in that kind of consultation. So beauty is a fantastic vertical for both businesses, and I think when we come together, we create something really quite magical in that customer experience. But yeah, it's often a consultation where, so let's use your daughter as an example. She would be able to perhaps upload some photos of herself, maybe some inspiration images of what she wants to look like at that special day, maybe talk about the sorts of colors or, really whatever she wants ahead of time, and then turn up to that appointment getting a really personalized experience, both through the booking process and then the in-store or virtual consultation. Typically they're free, although certainly we see clients charge for some of the higher end experiences and such like, and we can handle the payments as part of that. But yeah, typically it's a free consultation, and it's all about for the brand to get to know the customer really well and make sure that they're delivering the best experience possible, which obviously then translates often into the biggest basket size possible.
Absolutely right. I guess it's like a micro conversion or a little conversion towards what promises to be a bigger conversion. I imagine more often seen on higher ticket items. I'm thinking jewelers and things like that. I guess that consultation. Sarah, coming to you, are there other verticals that you both are stronger in than others? Like cosmetics makes perfect sense. Jewelry the same. Any others?
Yeah, absolutely. So we where we partner best, we would say probably like a considered purchase. And as you say, often you associate that with like a big ticket item. So a time like a piece of jewelry, a watch, automotive, home and furniture. Not many people would still not buy a sofa without having sat on it. So there's a luxury. So that element of the level of service that's required. So more than scheduling, you may want to see a particular store associate. You may already have an ongoing relationship. You may have booked an appointment to see them or even WhatsApped them and said, look, are you about this Saturday? I'm going to the races this week. Like, how can you help me? So that element of considered purchase rather than walking into a store. Browsing is still an element of it, but where there's not, I think it's not such a intimate relationship. Someone might help you, but you don't know them at that degree. And I think that's a difference between like mass customers and clienteling and that appointment type. Like you may start off just booking your first appointment with someone you've never met in store. But the idea is as you convert them and move them into that sort of top tier of loyalty, that they then want to come back to you because that provides the stickiness. Sometimes, especially with beauty, we can look at frequency. So as you say, with the appointments, often, even if they're paid for, they're redeemable against product. So the basket started there. We find with one of our joint clients, Charlotte Tilbury, that they go on to buy within 2 weeks of that appointment. So there is that element of the incremental growth you get even after those consultations.
That was such a nice name drop as well. And it was so kind of subtly just like, oh, only Charlotte Tilbury, no biggie. But yeah, just kind of very cool. So Leah, I'm going to come to you. I guess what I'm keen to know is, I guess from both of your platforms, we can glean an awful lot of data on the customer, which can then help empower future decision-making and future marketing activity, etc. So Leah, with yourself, what do retailers need to know about their customers and how does this data you're collecting help grow sales going forwards?
Well, I don't want to be over demanding here, but they need to know everything now. Like I really do think they do. And, as Sarah says, that starts right at the beginning of the journey and continues until after the experience and is the start of a really deep relationship. So, yeah, I mean, whatever the brand can now understand about their customer is only going to be a positive thing. And I think, starting that fact find and that discovery about your customer from the very first interaction, we all know that the marketing journey is being analyzed now so that we can understand when a customer comes in, we understand what they've looked at and all of that side of things. I think then going through the scheduling, Appointedd can automate a full kind of discovery process throughout the appointment booking. So we can, as I said, upload photos, there can be questions so that the retailer knows the problem that the customer has, how they feel about it, what will they be replacing with this purchase or this experience. And this can be done in a really kind of consultative, really caring way so that you're building that relationship with the customer before they've even come in. It doesn't feel like they're going through an interrogation. It feels like this is a brand that really cares to understand, to get to know you so that they can deliver the very best service. And all of that is tracked and automated and then passed into the relevant other platforms so that there's a real kind of unified customer journey where the customer feels like the brand really knows and understands them. And I think for me, that is where you build that real relationship. And, you know, importantly for the retailers, they are really understanding the pain points so that they can go on to solve it, but also make recommendations that are on the kind of edges of it and on the periphery of like, oh, I see you mentioned this. Have you thought about, you know, perhaps it's a service or a treatment or whatever, that they're able to kind of act as the expert because they know the customer. And so it's not inappropriate, it's not salesy, it is about consultation and about caring. And for me, that's where the magic happens, the personalisation and the kind of relationship build.
Yeah, I'm super excited by the prospect of that. I'm just thinking out loud here of some of our existing clients, particularly in the fine art space. I think there's a great use case for that kind of thing. And also I see Simon has joined and commented, and perhaps in that kind of gym space, beyond your smaller ticket items, actually, if you're buying a massive home gym or something like that, actually just to speak to someone that understands workout routines and that space and says, actually, based on what you're trying to achieve, like, what are your goals? Oh, okay, you're looking to lose weight or build muscle, etc. Your machine type is going to be very different. So I think that's really cool. Sarah, anything to add to that? I mean, you've got a bit of a graveyard shift there from Lish. She's kind of covered it pretty well.
Just like everything.
Yeah. Thank you. No, I think, like, I suppose it's along the same vein about that journey. I think sometimes you can, and everyone falls into it, like, these are all the things we can track for you, but actually per brand, per market, also different. Like, what is that journey? What do they expect? I think from the majority of people, a good experience is easy. You don't even realize it's happening. So how do you make sure that when you're online and browsing, that translates to in-store, whether that's like a brand feeling, whether it's the product, and just make it, like, it was bounded around a lot, but I think there is something to be said about this frictionless. Like, the end users should never know really what channel they're on. And I think, like, we as technology partners and retailers need to make sure that even the basics of how these things are set up are there. So, for example, always been there and still there in some cases, that a store associate will sometimes be a bit like reticent to say, well, you can buy that online, because then they use that attribution, they lose that. But by making sure that attribution is there, and whether they go online, in store, online, that everyone receives that recognition. I think that's key to, it really should be a moot point, that shouldn't even be something they should bring up as a challenge, because with the technology that exists, we should be able to say, look, they're just engaging with a brand, like, whichever way they do, like, we are want to build on that and make it a great experience.
I love that. And I think when you look at the Shopify team and their position of kind of unified commerce, and actually it doesn't matter, it's online, offline, it's brand, it's brand engagement wherever it is. And I think just building on that, I mean, there's been a lot of talk around omni-channel for the last few years, but finally it seems like the penny's starting to drop, which is really exciting. And I see so many brands now, even if it's just pop-ups, but they're certainly having more offline experiences and more face-to-face engagement, which I think is really refreshing. Question, I guess, Sarah, building on that, is there an example of this kind of omni-channel data being turned into useful information that you've got to hand, that you can be like, actually, here's a live example where we saw this work really well? I mean, Charlotte Tilbury might be one of them, or there might be another.
Yeah. So there is another. It's that considered purchase. So with Furniture Village, UK brand, family run, a piece of furniture, especially a sofa or a bed you're going to want to lay on, what we find really successful there is people would build a basket or a wish list, and then that can be used as the base of the consultation in store. Again, this is a perfect example of the store associate is not scared of this, because they know that they will get the reward at the end of that. And then often that will mean that they either purchase in store, and the time of that can be cut down. Like, one of the great stats we've got from that is 25 minutes to 5 minutes, because that all they needed to do was like try out that piece of furniture, and it meant that their experience was a lot smoother, not waiting around to see someone knew they were coming in because they made an appointment. They were then able to find. And I think the other, like stock data is a really good point for this. I think that surfacing what seems maybe quite normal these days, surfacing where something exists, so you can see this sofa in Tunbridge Wells, for instance, means that you can go there. And again, it's just taking away the friction from that experience. And I think then it makes your purchasing cycles easier, because you're maybe increasing your average order value. And then in turn, you're just more loyal to that brand because they've just made it a great experience.
Yeah, I really like this. Leah, I'm going to come to you, but I'm just going to answer some of these questions. We've got some great engagement coming in, so you must both be doing something right. So thank you. Minali, thank you for your lovely comments. Claire, as I talked to you about on email yesterday, StreamYard is the tool that we're using, etc. And so Claire runs a fabulous Shopify agency, and so hopefully she's going to be doing webinars a bit like this. Mark Tweed runs a fabulous brand called Cyber Jammies, and he's got a great question here around, is there any application with a lower ticket value item? So is there a minimum basket value where actually this service becomes no longer cost effective? So pajamas, they are beautiful pajamas, but at the same time, they're not going to be thousands of pounds just yet for that kind of product. So is there a threshold where you think, you know what, if your AOV is less than 500 quid, you're going to struggle to justify this? You can fight it out depending on who wants to answer it.
Yeah, I think that there is a minimum threshold, I think, to achieve your ROI, because I think if there's other elements you can do, like it's not necessarily just clienteling. So in an online pure space, you probably want to set a threshold, but in a store, so where a shoe store, for example, you can still like implement some of these in-store tools, because actually it cuts down the time if you've got a runner app, so someone can run out to the back and select the shoe. So I think it is case by case basis. On pure play online, I would say yes, before doing that, we would work with someone to say, look, is there the value here for this to happen? But I think there is, beauty works because it might be lower ticket items, but you buy a basket together. But in general, the sort of, I would say, the clienteling rather than some of the other elements are at that sort of tier 1, 2, and 3.
Thank you. Anything to add on that, or feel that's fair?
Yeah, I think it's a really fair summation. What I would say is kind of on the scheduling side, we see a lot of lower ticket items, and it's an investment that the brand is making, exactly as Sarah says, because it also saves time. So it's a lower ticket item, but really streamlining it and making it kind of a seamless experience pays dividends. But also it's about that relationship piece, where if you are a regular purchase, then building the loyalty, being the go-to, knowing that you can be either on demand or as a scheduled appointment and such, like, we can really see that add value as well. So I would say, yeah, there's probably less sensitivity, but like Sarah says, I think it's about working with the brand to understand what their ROI is and what their drivers are from a business perspective, and then really be very honest with them as to whether scheduling or clienteling or, you know, what they need. And I think I would say I love that both Red Ant and Appointedd are really truthful and really kind of client-centric in that way, that we'll talk and be like, yeah, this makes sense for you, this doesn't, and kind of really collaborate with brands there. And I think that's really paid dividends over the years.
Thank you. I guess a little bit of kind of role play. I just want to understand the products in situ a bit more. So I'm thinking of some cosmetics brands which are almost concessions in bigger store. And I'm thinking, well, how are they going to glean the data? Versus if you own the whole retail space, like a furniture shop, I can absolutely understand it. Your till system, your infrastructure, iPads or whatever are all going to be geared up. But if you're concession, I guess it might be one size fits all. How does it work? And so this might be one maybe for you. How does it work? If I'm in House of Fraser, if I'm in Gerald's locally or John Lewis or whatever, how can I make use of this technology? Or actually, can I only make use if I own the whole real estate?
Yeah. Really interesting question, because actually this was our first ever use case for the product like 12 years ago. So a well-known French fragrance and beauty brand had exactly that challenge. Like, each of the department stores would collect the data. So let's talk fragrance, a bit more unisex, but if you had gone into a House of Fraser previously and you'd bought a fragrance and then you went into John Lewis and you couldn't remember the name of it, they would know nothing about you. So the clienteling space of that consultative approach, understanding previous purchase behavior, understanding frequency of how you buy, is exactly the sweet spot of a lot of the clients we share in that beauty space. So it depends. There has to be the relationship between the department store and the beauty brand, and there's obviously some legalities around that. Sometimes we double opt in, but more and more we can look at something like Harrods or Selfridges Beauty Hall, and we're working with a large majority of those beauty retailers now. What I think is the customer is used to understanding the difference between an email from, say, Selfridges and the brand, and then it's around that planning around how that clienteling one-to-one piece, maybe a WhatsApp, is fits in with your mass marketing that then will be triggered by signing up that way as well. So it's definitely not a one size fits all, and then that needs to complement what you're doing on your e-com. But absolutely, the concession space is like the ideal element because it normally starts with an appointment. So it allows you to get to know what the customer needs, try different elements. And also the beauty with makeup is, excuse the pun, is that often they will use around 20 products, and the average person is not buying all those 20 products. So the element previous to this, you'd leave with a piece of paper that over time was getting a bit crinkly or you'd lose it. And the beauty of this is that you have a digital record of every product you've tried, and you can go back. If it's out of stock, you can be on the wait list and triggered on WhatsApp when it comes back in stock. So there's all these cases for both that benefits the customer but also the brand, to allow them to keep building that basket size and loyalty.
I mean, what's really exciting for me is that it seems like the gap is closing between offline and online. Having said that, Carl makes a good point that just as it feels like the gap is closing and retail is getting stronger, online also seems to be pulling away at an alarming rate in terms of now with the rise of marketplaces and everything else. It's like just when we thought we caught up, we've actually got a whole other gulf to try and address. I guess, coming to you, I get that you work really closely together. Maybe just a couple of case studies or client success stories that you're like, we're really proud of this one, and this one is something that is a great example for anyone listening.
I mean, I think Sarah's already mentioned Charlotte Tilbury, and I would absolutely love to lean into that. I think, they are an amazing brand, and certainly, they're well admired by customers and others in the industry. So I think they're one that is definitely worthy of holding up. And I think the relationship between Red Ant and Appointedd has really been able to drive some amazing results there. I talked a little bit about our annual data report earlier, when we really get to deep dive the data within the bookings across sector, but also within our individual clients. And Charlotte Tilbury was one of the ones that we really dived into there, and found that they had over 38,000 appointments booked for in-store appointments. So that is across kind of all of their consultation services, but around 15% of those were a service of red carpet ready. So really kind of, luxury service. And when you add on the virtual consultations there, they booked 73,000 virtual consultations. So like the collaboration there between Red Ant and Appointedd to really delight, we're talking well over 100,000 appointments there across the omnichannel space. The impact and the footprint there is undeniable. And I think the impact on their NPS, the impact on their colleagues. So we had one of their senior team speak at the launch of our annual data report. And he said, this is a tool that is in the hands of every one of our in-store colleagues on a day-to-day, minute by minute basis, because it's where they get all of the information ahead of the consultation. It's how they prepare for that interaction with the customer. so that when that happens, it is really, really meaningful. And all of that starts online, as you say. They don't necessarily feel a difference as to the platform they're on. That virtual consultation can be as intimate and as personal, and in some cases I would say even more so than the in-store, because you're just there, it's one-to-one, it's closed space, all of the questions that have come ahead of time, the photos that you've sent, like that is such a meaningful experience then. And I think the relationship that the client then builds with that brand, not least because Charlotte Tilbury has the most amazing brand tone of voice, I think. So just everything feels Charlotte Tilbury from kind of end to end. And yeah, the work, and I guess I'll tag team you in, Sarah, if that's okay, because I think, we then hand over to that in-store, and Red Ant does, so much amazing work there.
Yeah. And I think the success is almost wider than one client. Like where we originally started working together, about 5 years ago on Charlotte Tilbury. And then since we worked together on under the Coty stable, we worked together on Burberry Beauty, Gucci Beauty, Kylie. So what happens is that success story in each of the brands in different way is replicated. And I think I think you can have a very meaningful walk-up appointment, but the difference in having that data and being able to prepare for that consultation, sometimes it might be an important event, and then how you build that basket together, and then how you create that repeat purchase, and that they have that trusted relationship with someone who, sometimes we can make beauty seem fairly unimportant, but it can change people's lives, like in terms of a certain moment that they might have never found the right shade of foundation. Like you often see that, like if you're doing store visits, someone like they can be physically moved because of that level of service that they get from the store associate. And I think that all starts from the data they collect at the start.
No, great shares, thank you. I guess one for both of you, which is, for those listening today, what is the one area that you think retailers should focus on when looking to deliver a better customer experience? You must see like so many use cases, but is there something that crops up time and time again? Do you think they keep storing own goals, just fix this bit?
Yeah. I would say investment in store associates, like whether that's the people in the store, whether it's your customer service team, like they really are the key to like a great experience, or a good experience becoming great. I think like the technology we all provide can empower them, but that difference is them really believing in what they're doing, really understanding the technology they're using and why it, helps them like provide a better service, makes their job easier, gives them more time back. And I think I've sat in a few like business of fashion seminars, and most of the retailers there saying it's so hard to find people post pandemic. So how do we make like sure that whether it's offline or like in the customer centers, that they really are valued and there's value in those type of people? I think there's a lot of talk about this on LinkedIn as well, about what it means to work in retail and what we can do to make that a better experience. And I think that's a responsibility of the whole ecosystem. And if the store associate is almost that last person in the line, they're ironically most of the time most important, but sometimes can be the last thought, and you get high turnover. But I think through focusing on that, if you can try and like minimize that, even in the single digits percentage of that happening, like it leads to a better experience, more sales for the retailer, and a better end experience for the end customer.
Great.
Yeah, I would definitely, I would definitely agree with that, Sarah. I think one of the things that we have loved is when brands have been really investing in the training and the support of their in-store associates, and some of them are using Appointedd to facilitate that. So Charlotte Tilbury is a really great example where they use Appointedd to schedule their mental health first aid appointments, so that the in-store associates and their team as a whole can reach out and make a booking with, to get that support, to talk something through or whatever. We see brands using us for internal training and even kind of managing the full kind of recruitment process. And I think like when they're leaning into tools that are already being used within their business to really double down on the support that they can give those associates, it's a really great opportunity to I guess as much as anything sweat the investment that they've made into tools and get the most out of them. So yeah, the only other thing that I would say is the kind of loyalty side and being really creative with the loyalty piece. So I think like brands generally are kind of really savvy to the loyalty piece. They're understanding that they want to build that loyalty. I think what I would love to see more of is really kind of clever use of the loyalty mechanism to drive a flywheel of growth within the business. So how do you, we see some brands using those loyalty points to be redeemed on a VIP experience that is only bookable to, a certain tier of loyalty member, and like really unlocking something that is, is really rare, has that kind of cachet and experience. And that then really unlocks a kind of next level of loyalty. And they become, we've seen it where customers are then becoming real brand ambassadors for the experience and for the brand itself. So yeah, to just kind of thinking creatively about what can be the output of a really clever loyalty scheme.
They're two really nice use cases. I haven't really thought about it. You got the loyalty conversation, which I think is an excellent one, but that internal use case, it hadn't even crossed my mind. But of course, that's awesome as well. Claire's raised a really great point as well, which, do you both have any experience in the high-end bathroom sector? She'd love to have a chat with you both around a client they're working with. Seems to be a perfect fit with a kind of store and online purchasing experience, appointment booking and whatnot. So I'll make sure to share your details afterwards. And Claire, please do get in touch. That's what these are for. We're trying to lift the lid on these tech solutions and say, actually, it's amazing tools out there. Please do get in touch. So expect a conversation about bathrooms very soon, ladies. Just wrapping up today, conscious of time, and thank you all for joining and leaving your comments. I guess the one thing I'd like to know from each of you before we wrap up is, what's the secret to building long-term relationships with clients? Leah, I'm going to start with you on this one. If we look at summarizing all of today's conversation, what's the one big secret to maintaining and building long-term lasting relationships?
I think it is really properly being in the trenches with your customer, with your clients. When I look at Sarah and I and the way that Red Ant and Appointedd work with our clients, it is properly in the trenches. It is working really closely with each other, and our team's working really closely with each other so that we can then deliver the right experience for our clients, and that we can take their clients on take their customers on a really joined up journey. So I think collaboration for me at every level, whether it's your suppliers as a retailer, whether it's your suppliers collaborating to really drive the most amount of value for you as a brand, to be spotting opportunities for surprise and delight, really being greater than the sum of their parts when they work together, that then allows the brand itself to do that and to really collaborate with its customers because it knows so much more about them. It understands their pain points. So for me, it's collaboration right the way through end to end.
Very good. And Sarah, what about you?
I think mine would be quite, I suppose, traditional or basic. Like, I think it's trust and respect. Like, we have some of our clients. Our first client is still with us 10 years later. Average tenure is 5 years. So, and I think it's about being transparent, about really explaining. And I think, like Leah said, if you're not into the detail, you can't offer that extra added value. And it's that value add of, look, we can come in and help train on the counter because we've done some mystery shopping, we can see what's happening. And my preference is always face to face. I think the world has changed. That doesn't happen. You can't be face to face with a client in Singapore every day. But I think as both businesses scale and as you need to find mechanisms to build that trust and touch and be able to have an honest conversation and say, this is working really well, but you know, whether it's a technology problem, whether it's a people problem, just not sitting on things and saying, we need to address this together. Like, we could do this. We've thought we could do this. What can you do to adjust there? And I think it's constantly talking. Like, you hear these horror stories where people say, oh, I only hear from my account person a month before renewal. Like, and I think that, going back to my background, that's like the complete opposite of how I've come through what I've done in my career. And I think it's so, I just can't imagine doing that. And I think that element of having a great team behind you, but being front and center, I think makes a massive difference.
Sarah and Leah, I've absolutely loved chatting today. Thank you both for your time. For people wanting to find out more about both of you, Leah, perhaps start with you. Where's best to go to find out a bit more about you and to get in touch?
So the website is www.appointed.com, 2 Ds, you can see it in my name there. We're really active on LinkedIn, is probably the best channel for us. And yeah, you'll see Powered by Appointed at the bottom of lots of booking experiences in various amazing brands.
Very good. And Sarah, what about you?
Yeah, if someone's been here, easy as possible to go to LinkedIn, or again, they can email me. It's fairly simple. It's sarah.friswell@redant.com. And yeah, more than happy to have a chat with anyone, whether it's about as the bathroom question or whether it's just some advice. Like, I think Leah and I always take a lot of time to help other people. So even if it's something a little bit left field, like, we're always about to help and give advice.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you to all our lovely audience for listening live. For those of you that are catching up afterwards, please do follow up with Sarah and Leah, both full of knowledge and actually really encouraged to see that we're starting to close the gap between online and offline. And hopefully in the coming months and years ahead, this unified commerce will become, rather than a dream, more of a reality. But for now, thank you. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thanks.